How should you be valuing Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams in dynasty leagues? We're talking about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's a crossover Thursday. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me as always is former NFL scout Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, we finally made it. Welcome back, football. It's here. Later today, we'll be watching those Lions and the Chiefs. Maybe we're cheering for the Lions. We both got on the blue today. And fittingly, we're talking about a Detroit Lion, Jameson Williams. But it's not a Detroit Lion we're going to see on the field later tonight, though, because this guy has some issues. Our first dynasty value study of the regular season, Matt. And I wanted to start with Jameson Williams because not only is his team playing in the first game of the season later today, but this is a player I've really struggled in evaluating and in valuing throughout his career, his short career in the NFL. And honestly, he's making that more and more difficult for me. So before we get to some of the value study pieces that we do here, just kind of give me your overlook, your view of Jameson Williams. And if you can go back to when he entered the league, what did you think of him then? What do you think of him now?
Yeah, frustrating now. And we'll get to more now in a minute here. So we know that class was ridiculously good. I mean, Olave, Wilson, London, Pickens. I mean, guys that aren't even, super high picks. Really, really good class. Watson. And when they came out, I regret it a little now. Williams was my wide receiver one and rare speed. I mean, like Ted Ginn plus speed. But what I loved about him was his toughness, his, as a teammate, he would block, he would run down on punts and make tackles, you don't see that from stars. So I thought, man, high quality teammate person. And I don't think any of the things that happened to him indicate that he's a bad guy or anything. I mean, it was a gambling thing. It was stupid. It wasn't necessarily, something that was really, really bad. But we know how this league works, and I hope he's not Trey Lance. You know what I mean? Like, come into the league and just have some bad luck and bad time that it happened, and before you know it, the Lions are using a first-round pick next year and a wide receiver, and he's Laviska Shenault or somebody. You know what I mean? There's someone that's an afterthought, because I fear that because he's put himself behind the eight ball on two occurrences, the league doesn't wait for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Jameson Williams is a tough one. And I said it's been hard for me to evaluate him, and maybe it should be easy because I feel like he's given us multiple reasons to doubt him, to sell him, to move him down rankings. So let's kind of go back over those a little bit. Of course, he entered the NFL with the ACL injury, and that is what it is. And that ultimately probably cost Alabama a championship a couple years ago, that injury that happened in the title game, early in the title game, if I'm remembering correctly. So we basically knew Williams wouldn't play early in the season, and that was the case. Last year, as a rookie, he ends up playing just 6 games, a total of, in those 6 games, 9 targets, 1 catch. That 1 catch was a 41-yard touchdown. So that's a little bit of a silver lining there, but just 9 targets and 1 reception. He did also add a 40-yard run to those numbers as well. So that was his rookie season. The offseason has not been great for Jameson Williams either. Suspended 6 games for violating the league's gambling policy. So he's out the first 6 games of the season. And then after that, suffers a hamstring injury, pretty serious hamstring injury, reportedly, because he missed most of training camp and all of the preseason. And there was even some conjecture, we'll call it, that even if it wasn't for that suspension, that he would not be ready for the week 1 opener because of that hamstring injury. So regardless, he's not playing tonight. He's not playing for the first 6 games for the Lions. And I mean, those are all the things that make you label him as a frustrating player. But I feel like we have on-field concerns, right? What he's shown us in those 6 games was almost nothing. I mean, maybe the flash of that upside, the deep touchdown, the 40-yard run. I believe he actually had another long touchdown catch that was called back on a penalty. So he's shown us those flashes, but 9 targets, 1 catch. I mean, I know he was coming back from injury and probably not 100%, but that's a concern for me. So we've got on-field concerns. We've got off-field concerns, the gambling, and you called him a good teammate based on your research. We saw reports that he got into multiple fights at Lions practice, and maybe that's a nothing. We saw Travis Kelce do that as well. Maybe that's a nothing, but when it piles on all the other stuff, it starts to become a little bit more of a worry. So we've got on-field, we've got off-field, and of course we have the injury concerns. I already mentioned the ACL, along with the serious hamstring injury that he's dealing with right now. So Matt, which of those negatives, on-field, off-field injury, which of those are the biggest worry for you when it comes to trying to peg down Jameson Williams' dynasty value?
I'm less worried about on the field than getting on the field.
So injury would be your biggest worry,
I guess, or another suspension, or it just is there a black cloud following this dude or what? I mean, what's that saying? Like, once is bad luck, twice is a coincidence, third's a trend. Like, is it just going to be one thing after another, and then all of a sudden, like I said, the Lions are going elsewhere outside the organization and trading him for a 5th round pick to anybody they'll take him? Like, that would be horrible. But boy, I wish we saw more in the NFL, of course, but I think he still has massive big play abilities. And I mentioned Ted Ginn. I don't think he's a Deshaun Jackson, Ted Ginn, 2 for 18, and then the next week 3 for 118. I think he's much more of a consistent route runner, chain mover than those types.
He was consistent last year. He gave us 0 catches in 5 of his games. So that was consistent, but not the type of consistency we want to see. Let's start talking a little bit about Jameson Williams' value. That's what we're here to do in this value study. And if you have not heard these before, this is an exercise we go through not every week, but I would say certainly periodically throughout the regular season. We use data from Dynasty League Football, along with some Twitter polls that we do to really try to identify the current value of the player that we're focusing on. So Jameson Williams, current Dynasty startup ADP, and this is September. We've been looking at that September ADP the past couple of days. He's the wide receiver 43, 87 overall, and some names being drafted around him, Matt, just for that reference. The rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, Mike Williams as well. There's Jameson Williams, Elijah Moore, Gabe Davis. Those are the players he's being valued around. Wide receiver 43, 87 overall. Does that feel about right to you at this point?
Yeah, I think that's safe. Gabe Davis isn't for me, but I happen to love Elijah Moore. I think Richardson's only going to skyrocket up. So there's a couple names there that I also happen to like. But if you told me, before we name, this is what's cool about this exercise that you put together, is if you're like, he's wide receiver 43 and startup and 87 overall, is that too high or low? I'd say that's too low. But then you start comparing, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, but I don't like him better than that guy. And, when you put names to it, it's a lot more telling. So I think that's about right, but I would still be buying more than I'm selling right now.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I agree with you on both of those points, because you start looking at some of those names and they kind of go further and further down the list as you kind of realize the range there. I mean, Zach Charbonnet, Terry McLaurin's in that range. So there's a lot of guys being valued in that same range that honestly, that I'd prefer to Jameson Williams. I am with you, Gabe Davis. Lower on him. I wouldn't put him in that group. Mm-hmm. Looking at DLF rankings, the DLF rankers a little higher on Jameson Williams, maybe than the ADP crew. He's at wide receiver 38 and 75 overall in that group. Mike Evans, James Cook, Rashad White, and there's Anthony Richardson again. Those are the players being valued around Jameson Williams this time. I'd rather have Williams than Mike Evans at this point.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm probably taking a chance on the rest of those guys, the young running backs, Cook and White. I have questions about both, but I'd still gamble on those two, and certainly would prefer Richardson. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, Evans for sure is behind J-Mo. I've really warmed up to James Cook though, so
okay,
that's not a great name for me. I would rank Cook noticeably above White. So yeah, I mean, he's about right there. I mean, Cook and Richardson of that group I like better. White and certainly Evans I like worse.
Okay, all right. So that's where Jameson Williams is being valued based on current ADP and rankings from Dynasty League Football. We're going to talk about some trades, and we'll get to those Twitter polls. That's my favorite part. We create a ranking out of those Twitter polls, and we'll do all of that next.
Guys, I've told you about Prize Picks before, and I've done really well with it. And what I love about Prize Picks is it's not me versus someone else that just happens to get lucky that week. It's me versus the number, and what it is it's the largest independently owned daily fantasy platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's like I said, it's just you against the numbers. That's my favorite part about it. Instead of battling thousands of players or somebody head to head, including pros, sharks, all those guys that really do this for a living, you pick more or less than all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 different player stat projections, and hopefully watch the winnings roll in. So, there's some things on here like I love to test my skills on Prize Picks this football season. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, which I think I do, and I'm starting to prove it here, using it over and over, you can turn $10 into 200 or 250 in just a few taps. It's really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry less than 60 seconds. I mean, I can do it during commercial when I'm watching TV. Quick withdrawals, which is super important. Easy game day, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the number one daily sports app out there. So, there's things like Justin Jefferson for more or less than 100 yards, or Lamar Jackson for more than 1 passing touchdown, Josh Allen for more than 2 passing touchdowns. All those type of things are how it works. And again, you just pick between 2 and 6. They offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Pick discounts select the player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So please go to prizepicks.com /LockedOnNFL, all one word, and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. It's highly encouraged to hit this up. I mean, it's $100 free basically on a first deposit match when you go to prizepicks.com /LockedOnNFL with that promo code LockedOnNFL.
We're conducting a dynasty value study of Jameson Williams, Detroit Lions, wide receiver. Again, you won't see him tonight if you're watching that game because he is suspended for the first 6 games of the year for violating the league's gambling policy. There was a lot of eye rolling about that suspension. That the NFL is certainly in bed with these with Vegas, with gambling sites, with all of them at this point. So I don't think anybody's really holding that suspension against Jameson Williams in evaluating his dynasty value. But at the same time, it's 6 games that we're not going to get to see him. So that piece certainly hurts. Matt, let's look at some recent trades. These all come. Yeah, these come from the Dynasty Trade Finder at DLF. Again, these are all real trades that have happened in real Dynasty leagues hosted on My Fantasy League. And there are some doozies here, Matt. Jameson Williams and Alec Pierce for James Cook. So you mentioned earlier that you were much higher on Cook in general and much higher on him compared to Jameson Williams. I'm assuming you would add Pierce to move from Williams to Cook. Is that fair to assume?
Yeah. I like Cook is really growing on me, but Pierce is enough for me to take that side.
I'm with you as well there. I would prefer Cook also. Jameson Williams for MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and a 2nd-round pick.
MVS has very little value to me.
Yeah, MVS has really almost no value, certainly no trade value. I don't think he moves the needle in a deal like this. This is essentially just moving Jameson Williams for a 2nd-rounder. That's not enough.
Not enough.
I mean, I'm worried about the player. I'm worried about the situation. You've got to get more than just that 2nd-round pick. So I'm easily taking Jameson Williams there. We've got a couple of trades from Superflex leagues, and these are 1-for-1 deals. Williams for a quarterback. And I always think those trades are interesting where you see a quarterback traded for a position player in a Superflex league, because we all know how difficult it is to get that quarterback. Jameson Williams for Jared Goff and Jameson Williams for Russell Wilson. What are you doing on these 2 deals?
I prefer Goff to Wilson, but even in Superflex, I like Williams to both.
Oh, I was going to go the other way. I think again, just thinking about the scarcity and, if you need that quarterback 2, maybe even a quarterback 3, just to feel safe, or maybe Bryce Young is your 2nd quarterback, but you don't necessarily feel comfortable starting him yet. I think it's worth moving Williams for that insurance. I definitely get the concern with both of these guys, especially Russell Wilson after what we saw last year. But I would take the quarterback there on both of those deals. Actually,
I can understand it.
We disagree a little bit on that one. Williams, this one might be the closest. Jameson Williams for Alexander Madison and a 2nd-round pick. Which side are you taking there?
Madison's a big sell for me. Like, I think Ty Chandler might be the running back to own there.
Okay.
But still, he's obviously worth more than MVS in a second. I lean towards Williams here.
I think I probably do as well. Just for that upside. And even though we've seen him touch the ball 3 times in the NFL, all 3 of those resulted in big plays, one called back on a penalty. So I'll go Jameson Williams here as well. Next one's easy for me. Jameson Williams for Romeo Doubs, 1-for-1. I don't think that's all that close. I definitely want Williams there.
I think Doubs is a huge sell right now. I would move him right now if you can.
Yeah, I just don't feel like he has that much trade value. I was surprised to see that deal go down. Last one, Jameson Williams and a 3rd-round pick for Calvin Ridley. This one's easy for me. I want Calvin Ridley here.
Yeah, not even close.
Okay, good. We're on the same page to wrap up the trade conversation. I will tell you, I had Jameson Williams in a couple leagues as of 2 weeks ago. I was able to move him in one of those. It was a multiple player deal on both sides, so probably not worth bringing up. But I would just say I had to send out several offers to several other managers in the league to really get the trade talks going there. I kind of felt like he was a tough sell, and part of that experience was what made me want to go through this. And I've got to say his value is still a little bit higher than I expected. And we're going to finish up the conversation looking at those Twitter rankings created through player versus player polls. We'll do that right after this.
Guys, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. I mean, you want to be absolutely 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. I mean, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and free. Boy, do I wish something like this existed when I was in the scouting versus both college and NFL world. Everything that way is, word of mouth, who you know. I mean, a service like this would be absolutely tremendous. And it's super easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. The whole thing's very simple, very easy. The screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with the exact right skills and experience that you're looking for, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the number one in delivering quality hires versus leading to competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. That's the key. I mean, it's just, we don't have time to waste. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Thanks again for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. The Locked On Ultimate NFL Season Preview is here. The 7-episode extravaganza brings opinions, analysis, and plenty of debate from all 32 of our Locked On hosts, with added insights from our national experts. It's a can't-miss series before the season kicks off. Catch every episode on Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Matt, we were talking Jameson Williams and his dynasty value today, and I created a series of polls pitting Jameson Williams against several other wide receivers, some young, some old, but all valued in his same tier, at least based on our recent ADP. And like I said, mostly because of my personal experience and trying to trade him away in a couple of leagues, I expected this to go much differently than it did. Spoiler alert, we've got Jameson Williams nearly at the top of this list, favored significantly over most of these other wide receivers. In fact, the only receiver chosen ahead of him was one of your guys over there, Matt, in Pittsburgh, George Pickens. Pickens was chosen by 76% of the respondents on Twitter, leaving, of course, just 24% for Jameson Williams. So that one was a bit of a blowout. I was not surprised by that, and not surprised looking at some of these names that we'll get to. I was not surprised that Pickens was considered the most valuable player of the group. He certainly has been moving up the board, gaining a little bit of value as the season nears. So that part was not surprising, but to see Williams essentially second on the list over everyone else kind of threw me off a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. You? Yeah, it did. I mean, some of these names have concerns, or, Elijah Moore's changed teams. I mean, they have some warts as well. Bateman can't stay on the field. Sky Moore's coming off a very lackluster rookie year. But I think he's properly seated here. I mean, him versus Elijah Moore to me might be 50-50, not 59-41. But, yeah, I mean, I'm splitting hairs a little bit.
Well, let's name the names because, again, it was Jameson Williams by a fairly wide margin against every other wide receiver. You said they had issues. A lot of these guys are they're veterans. They're if they're not 30 years old yet, they're getting close. In fact, several of them are over 30 years old. And that was not necessarily by design. Again, that's just kind of the other receivers that are being valued in the same tier as the young Jameson Williams right now. Elijah Moore, 41%. Rashad Bateman, 39%. Sky Moore, 38%. So the youngest guys of the group are the closest, although not necessarily that close to Williams. Then we get to the veterans. Mike Williams, 36. Tyler Lockett, 32%. Mike Evans, way down the list, 30% of the vote. DeAndre Hopkins, 26. Gabe Davis, 24. And then these last two guys, not even close, honestly. Cortland Sutton, 17% of the votes, and Brandon Cooks, just 12%. Any surprises based on the order there, Matt?
I still love Lockett. I know he's up
Yeah.
in age. I like him a lot more than Evans and Hopkins. And all in all, no. I mean, I've said many times Gabe Davis isn't really for me, but it's not like he's got a great case here. I still am into Bateman. I'm still into more and more. I think Williams has a lot of value still as well. So I think I would rank these very similar to this, to be honest with you. I wish I could, be a little more controversial.
Yeah, you don't have to be. So we've seen through trades, through rankings, through ADP, and even through the social media of Twitter, we've seen how Jameson Williams is being valued. Based on all of that, Matt, would you consider Jameson Williams a buy or a sell at his current value?
Buy. I mean, I'm going to stick with my college eval. I don't see a lot of competition for him. It might take to the second half of this season for him to really assert himself, but I have a hunch if we were to redo this in December, his value will be higher than it is now, unless there's some other injury or off the field, of course, and then it's shot.
Yeah, my mind didn't change here, so we're going to disagree. I consider him a sell. If anything, it showed his value was higher than I expected, so that makes me feel even better about selling him and about aiming a little higher maybe than I was previously. Looking at those names from the Twitter poll, if I can get Elijah Moore plus, I'm willing to do that. If I can get one of those veterans that I can start all season, like Tyler Lockett or even a Mike Williams or DeAndre Hopkins, and something else. And the gap in the polls shows me I can get something else, maybe a second round pick or a prospect I like. Those are the types of deals I would be looking to make if selling Jameson Williams.
So it sounds like you're getting out while the getting's good, and the getting's pretty good right now.
It's better than I thought, for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like everyone was way down on him. Maybe it's just the few folks that are in my league where I had a hard time selling him. That's going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. I'm Ryan, MC23. Enjoy football. It's tonight. I can't wait. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.